What happened when a rich tech boss thought he could humiliate a young waitress in front of a room full of powerful people? The Apex Tower Hotel's grand dining room in New York buzzed with the clink of glasses and the hum of important conversations. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over white tablecloths, where men in sharp suits and women in sleek dresses leaned into their deals and egos. At the center of it all was Harlon Voss, a 40-something tech mogul with slick-back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His tailored navy suit screamed money, and his voice carried the kind of confidence that came with closing billion-dollar deals. Tonight, he was hosting a private dinner to seal a partnership with the hotel's owners, a deal that could cement his company's dominance. But his attention wasn't on the deal just yet. It was on the young waitress moving quietly through the room. Sofia Ramirez, 24, wove between tables with a tray balanced on one hand. Her black shirt and white apron were crisp, her dark hair pulled into a neat ponytail that swayed as she worked. She looked like any other server, her face calm and focused, but her eyes held a quiet intensity. Sofia wasn't just a waitress. She was the daughter of the Ramirez family, the hotel's owners, working undercover to see how the staff was treated. Her parents had built this place from nothing, pouring their lives into it, and now, with her father's health failing, Sofia was stepping up to protect their legacy. She kept that secret close, her heart steady even as she carried plates and refilled wine glasses for people who barely glanced at her. Harlon noticed her. Not because she stood out, but because he needed someone to make a point. As Sofia set a glass of sparkling water in front of him, he leaned back in his chair, his voice loud enough to draw eyes from nearby tables. "Hey, sweetheart, you sure you're cut out for this? That glass is half empty already. Don't they train you to fill it to the top?" His table, 3 men and a woman named Lisa, all in expensive clothes, chuckled. Lisa, her blonde hair pinned up, smirked and whispered something to the man next to her, who laughed behind his hand. Sofia's lips curved into a polite smile. "I'll bring you another, sir," she said, her voice even. She turned toward the kitchen, but Harlon wasn't done. "Hold on," he called, waving a hand like he was summoning a dog. "You forgot the lemon." "I asked for lemon, didn't I?" He looked around the table for confirmation, and the others nodded, playing along. Sofia paused, her tray still balanced. "Of course, sir. I'll get that for you." Her tone stayed steady, but inside she felt the sting. Not for herself, she'd heard worse, but for the other staff who faced this kind of thing every day. She thought of her father, who always said the hotel was only as strong as the people who ran it. At a nearby table, Jack, a reporter in his 30s with a notepad tucked under his plate, watched closely. His dark eyes flicked between Harlon and Sofia, his pen twitching like he could already see the headline. Jack had been covering Harlon's tech empire for months, sniffing out cracks in the mogul's perfect image. Something about this moment felt like it could be a story. Next to him, Mike, a rival CO with a shaved head and a sharp gray suit, leaned back with a faint smile. Mike had been gunning for Harlon's company for years, and he wasn't here just for the food. He sipped his wine, his gaze locked on Sofia as she moved away, her steps measured and calm. Harlon kept going, his voice carrying over the room's hum. "You know, it's amazing this place stays in business with service like this," he said, loud enough for Sofia to hear as she returned with a fresh glass and a slice of lemon. "Maybe they should automate the wait staff. My company's working on that, you know. Robots don't forget the lemon." His table laughed again, louder this time. Lisa leaned forward, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Oh, Harlon, don't be mean. She's trying her best," she said, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. The man next to her, Tom, snorted. "Yeah, trying. That's about it." Sofia set the glass down carefully, her fingers steady. "Anything else you need, sir?" she asked, looking Harlon in the eye. Her voice was soft but firm, like she was anchoring herself against his words. Harlon waved her off, already turning to his guests. "Just don't mess up the entrees, okay? We're here for a big night, not a comedy show." The table erupted in laughter again, and Sofia felt the eyes of the room on her. She kept her face neutral, but her mind flashed to her mother, who taught her to hold her head high no matter what. She thought of the busboy, Carlos, who'd been working double shifts to support his kid, and the housekeeper, Maria, who'd cried in the break room last week over a guest's insult. This was why she was here, not just for her family but for them. As Sophia moved to clear plates from another table, Jack scribbled something in his notebook, his brow furrowed. He'd seen Harlan's type before, men who built empires by stepping on people they thought didn't matter. But there was something about Sophia's calm, the way she didn't flinch, that made him curious. Mike, meanwhile, caught her eye as she passed. He gave her a small nod, almost like he saw something the others didn't. Sophia didn't react, but she noted it. She'd learned to read people in this job, to spot who was watching and why. Back at Harlan's table, the mood was getting louder. The wine was flowing, and Harlon was in his element, telling a story about his latest tech breakthrough. "It's all about efficiency," he said, gesturing with his fork. "Cut the fat, streamline the process. Places like this could learn a thing or two." He glanced at Sophia, who was refilling water at a nearby table. "Right, sweetheart? You ever think about how much faster this could be if you weren't slowing things down?" His guests laughed again, and Lisa clapped her hands like it was the funniest thing she'd heard all night. Sophia turned, her tray loaded with empty glasses. "We do our best to keep things moving, sir," she said, her voice still calm. "Anything else I can get for you?" Harlon leaned forward, his eyes glinting with something meaner than amusement. "Yeah, maybe a little hustle. You're making us wait here." He tapped his watch for emphasis, and Tom chuckled, muttering, "She's probably new." Sophia's jaw tightened, but she didn't break. She thought of her father's stories about starting as a dishwasher, how he'd earned respect through hard work. She wasn't here to prove herself to Harlon, she was here to protect the people who kept this place alive. Jack's pen moved faster now, his eyes darting between Harlon and Sophia. He could feel the tension building, like a scene in a movie right before everything changes. Mike, too, was watching, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. He'd heard rumors about the Ramirez family, whispers of a daughter who was more involved than anyone knew. But he kept that to himself, his face unreadable. Sophia stepped away to check on another table, her ponytail swinging as she moved. Harlan's voice followed her. "I mean, come on, folks, this is a 5-star hotel, not a diner. You'd think they'd hire people who can keep up." His table laughed again, but this time, a few other guests glanced over, some with unease, others with amusement. Sophia kept moving, her hands steady as she cleared plates. She thought of her parents' struggles, the loans, the late nights, the years of building something real. She thought of Carlos, Maria, and the others who deserved better than this. Her calm wasn't weakness, it was strength, forged from knowing who she was and why she was here. Harlon leaned back, swirling his wine. "Let's see if she can get the desserts right," he said, his voice loud enough to carry. "What do you think, Lisa? Think she'll drop the tray this time?" Lisa giggled, covering her mouth. "Oh, Harlon, you're awful," she said, but her eyes were on Sophia, waiting for a reaction. Sophia didn't give them one. She met Harlan's gaze for a moment, her expression unreadable, then turned toward the kitchen. Jack's pen paused, his eyes narrowing. Mike's smile grew just a fraction. And Harlon, oblivious, raised his glass for another toast, his voice booming. "To efficiency, and to people who know their place." His guests laughed, their eyes flicking toward Sophia Ramirez, who was moving toward the kitchen with a tray of empty plates, her black shirt and white apron spotless, her ponytail steady. She didn't turn, didn't flinch, but her mind was sharp, cataloging every word. Harlan's mockery wasn't new to her, she'd heard it from others during her weeks undercover, but it fueled her resolve. She was here for her family's legacy and the staff who kept it alive, not for men like Harlon who saw her as a prop for their egos. As Sophia disappeared through the kitchen doors, Harlon leaned back, grinning at his table. "I'm telling you, this deal's going to put us on top," he said, his voice loud enough to carry to nearby tables. "The hotel's owners are desperate. They'll sign anything I put in front of them." Lisa, her diamond earrings glinting, nodded eagerly. "You've got this, Harlon," she said, sipping her wine. Tom, the man next to her, chuckled. "Yeah, just don't let the waitstaff negotiate for them. We'll be here all night." The table erupted in laughter again, and Harlan's chest puffed out, feeding off their approval. At a nearby table, Jack, the reporter, scribbled furiously in his notebook, his dark eyes narrowing. He'd been waiting for a moment like this, Harlan's arrogance laid bare, ripe for a story. Next to him, Mike, the rival CO, sipped his wine slowly, his shaved head catching the chandelier light. Mike's faint smile hadn't faded since Harlan's toast. He knew something Harlan didn't, and his fingers tapped the table like he was counting down to something big. The kitchen doors swung open, and Sophia returned, carrying a tray of desserts, perfectly plated chocolate torts, each garnished with a mint sprig. She moved with the same calm precision, setting a plate in front of Harlan. "Your dessert, sir," she said, her voice steady, her eyes meeting his for a brief moment. Harlan barely looked at her, waving a hand dismissively. "Took long enough," he muttered, picking up his fork. "Let's hope it's better than the service." Lisa smirked, and Tom leaned over to inspect the plate. "Looks okay, but I bet it's store-bought," he said, loud enough for Sophia to hear as she set down the next plate. Sophia didn't react, but as she moved to the next table, her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She slipped into a quiet corner near the service station, glancing at the screen. A message from her mother: "It's done. The board approved the takeover. Come to the office when you're ready." Sophia's heart quickened, but her face stayed calm. She'd known this moment was coming. Her family's company had been quietly buying up shares of Harlan's tech empire for months, a plan she'd helped orchestrate. The hotel deal was just a piece of it, a way to lure Harlan into overconfidence. She tucked the phone away and returned to the dining room, her steps as steady as ever. Back at Harlan's table, the mood shifted. A man in a gray suit, one of Harlan's aides, approached quickly, his face pale. He leaned down, whispering urgently in Harlan's ear. Harlan's smirk faltered, his fork pausing midair. "What do you mean, emergency board meeting?" he hissed, loud enough for Lisa and Tom to glance over. The aide whispered again, and Harlan's face tightened, his jaw clenching. "Now? You're kidding me." He pushed his chair back, standing abruptly, and followed the aide toward a private alcove near the dining room's entrance. Sophia watched from across the room, her tray empty now, her hands clasped in front of her apron. Jack, the reporter, noticed her stillness, his pen slowing as he studied her. Mike, too, was watching, his smile growing just a fraction. The dining room's chatter continued, but a new tension rippled through Harlan's table. Lisa leaned toward Tom, whispering, "What's going on?" "He looks pissed." Tom shrugged, but his eyes followed Harlan, who was now on his phone in the alcove, his voice low but sharp. "This is insane. They can't do this without me." Sophia moved toward the alcove, her steps deliberate, carrying a fresh carafe of coffee as an excuse. As she passed Harlan, she caught fragments of his conversation, words like shares, control, and Ramirez. Her pulse stayed steady, but her mind was racing. The takeover was unfolding faster than she'd expected. She set the carafe on a nearby table and turned back toward the dining room, catching Jack's eye. He tilted his head, like he was piecing something together. Mike, meanwhile, leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable but his gaze locked on Sophia. Harlan stormed back to his table, his face red, his tie slightly askew. "This is a setup," he snapped, loud enough to draw stares. Lisa frowned. "What's wrong, Harlan?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. Harlan ignored her, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Sophia, who was clearing a table nearby. "You," he called, pointing at her. "Get over here." The room quieted, heads turning. Sophia straightened, her face calm, and walked toward him, her apron brushing her knees. "Yes, sir," she said, her voice as even as ever. Harlan's lip curled. "You work for the Ramirez family, don't you? What do you know about this deal?" His voice was loud, accusatory, and the room's attention locked onto them. Lisa's eyes widened, and Tom leaned forward, sensing drama. Sophia tilted her head slightly, her expression unshaken. "I'm just a waitress, sir," she said, but there was a quiet strength in her tone that made Jack's pen pause. Mike's smile widened, and he set his wine glass down, leaning forward now. "Just a waitress?" Harlan scoffed, stepping closer. "Don't play dumb. I know how these things work. Someone's feeding info to the Ramirez family, and you're always around, listening. He gestured at her apron, her ponytail, like they were evidence of something. The room was silent now, every eye on them. Sophia didn't step back. I bring coffee and clear plates, sir, she said, her voice steady. That's my job. Harlan's face twisted, but before he could speak, the dining room doors swung open. A woman in a sharp blazer, Sophia's mother, Elena Ramirez, strode in, followed by two men in suits. The room's tension spiked. Elena's eyes found Sophia, and a small nod passed between them. Harlon turned, his confidence faltering as he recognized Elena. Mrs. Ramirez, he said, his voice tight. What's this about? Elena's voice was calm but commanding. Harlon, we need to talk. Your company's board just voted. The Ramirez family now holds the majority shares. The room gasped, murmurs rippling through the guests. Harlan's face drained of color. That's impossible, he stammered. I'd know if... Sophia stepped forward, her apron still tied, her voice cutting through his. It's not impossible, Mr. Voss. It's done. The room froze. Harlon stared at her, his mouth open. Lisa's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Jack's pen was flying now, his eyes wide. Mike leaned back, his smile full now, like he'd been waiting for this. Who the hell are you? Harlon demanded, his voice cracking. Sophia untied her apron, folding it neatly over her arm. I'm Sophia Ramirez, she said, her voice clear and steady. Daughter of Elena and Carlos Ramirez. And as of tonight, part of the family that owns your company. The room erupted in whispers, phones appearing as guests started recording. Jack was scribbling so fast his pen tore the page. Mike clapped slowly, a glint of respect in his eyes. Harlan staggered back, his hand gripping the table. This is a joke, he muttered, but no one was laughing now. Sophia turned to the busboy, Carlos, who'd been watching from the corner, his eyes wide. Carlos, she said, her voice warm. You're promoted to shift manager, effective tomorrow. You've earned it. Carlos blinked, his mouth open, and a few staff members nearby cheered softly. The online buzz was already starting. Guests posting clips, hashtags like #Apex Takeover spreading. Sophia looked back at Harlan, her eyes steady. This hotel, this company, it's about the people who make it work. Not just the ones at the top. She glanced at her mother, who nodded proudly. The staff began to gather, their faces a mix of shock and hope. Sophia's leadership was emerging, her plan clear, to build something better, starting now. The dining room at Apex Tower Hotel was still buzzing with whispers, the air thick with the aftermath of Sophia Ramirez's bombshell. Guests' phones glowed as they typed furiously, spreading the news of the Ramirez family's takeover of Harlan Voss's tech empire. Sophia stood tall, her white apron now folded over her arm, her black shirt slightly wrinkled from the night's work, but her eyes burned with purpose. Harlan, his face pale, gripped the edge of his table, his confidence shattered. Elena Ramirez, Sophia's mother, stood nearby, her sharp blazer a stark contrast to the dining room's chaos, her nod to Sophia radiating pride. The staff, busboys, servers, and cooks peeking from the kitchen, watched with a mix of awe and hope. Sophia's words to Carlos, the busboy she just promoted to shift manager, still hung in the air, and his stunned smile was spreading to the others. Sophia turned to the gathered staff, her voice steady but warm. This place runs because of you, she said, her eyes moving from Carlos to Maria, the housekeeper who'd been wiping down a table nearby. And starting tomorrow, we're making changes to show it. She glanced at her mother, who gave a small nod, then continued. Better wages, health benefits, and a voice in how this hotel runs. You're not invisible. The staff erupted in soft cheers, a few clapping hesitantly, like they couldn't believe it was real. Maria's eyes welled up, and she pressed a hand to her mouth, nodding at Sophia. Harlan, still standing, tried to regain control. You can't just waltz in and take everything, he snapped, his voice hoarse. I built that company. Sophia turned to him, her expression calm but unyielding. And my family saved it, she said. Your board was ready to sell you out. We gave them a better option. Harlon opened his mouth, then closed it, his hands shaking. Mike, the rival CEO at a nearby table, stood and approached, his gray suit catching the light. She's right, Harlon, he said, his voice smooth but sharp. You overplayed your hand. The Ramirez family played smarter. Mike's eyes met Sophia's, and he gave her a nod of respect, the kind that said he'd underestimated her. Jack, the reporter, was still scribbling, his notebook nearly full. He looked up, catching Sophia's eye. Miss Ramirez, he called, standing. Can I get a statement? This is huge. Sophia hesitated, then smiled faintly. Write this, she said. The Apex Tower Hotel is about fairness. It's about people, not just profit. Jack's pen flew across the page, his face lit with the thrill of a career-making story. He glanced at Harlon, then back at Sophia, already drafting the headline in his mind, Waitress turns tycoon in stunning takeover. Sophia moved toward the staff, who were now clustering near the kitchen doors. She crouched slightly to meet Maria's eyes. You okay? She asked softly. Maria nodded, wiping her cheeks. You're really one of us, she said, her voice thick. Sophia squeezed her shoulder. Always have been. She stood, addressing the group. Tomorrow, we start staff meetings. I want your ideas on how to make this place better. Carlos, still reeling from his promotion, stepped forward. Miss Ramirez, Sophia, I don't know what to say, he stammered. Just keep doing what you do, Sophia said, smiling. You've got this. Across the room, Harlon sank into his chair, his guests, Lisa, Tom, and the others, avoiding his gaze. Lisa picked at her dessert, her earlier smirk gone. Tom muttered something about catching a flight, already pulling out his phone. Harlon stared at the table, his hands flat on the cloth. Elena approached him, her voice low but firm. You'll stay on as an advisor, Harlon, she said. But the company answers to us now. Harlon looked up, his jaw tight, but he nodded once. The fight drained out of him. Sophia watched, her heart steady. She didn't hate Harlon, she pitied him. He'd learn, or he'd fade. The next morning, the hotel was alive with a new energy. Staff whispered excitedly in the break room, sharing news of Sophia's plans. She stood in the hotel's conference room, no longer in her waitress uniform but in a simple blazer, her ponytail replaced by loose waves. She was outlining a new training program to the staff, her voice clear. We're investing in you, she said, pointing to a chart on the wall. Classes, certifications, whatever you need to grow. Carlos, now in a manager's badge, nodded eagerly, taking notes. Maria raised her hand shyly. Can we have a fund for emergencies? Like for medical bills? Sophia smiled. Already in the works. Outside, the city buzzed with the story. Jack's article hit the newsstands and online, titled, From Waitress to Powerhouse, Sophia Ramirez's Takeover Triumph. It praised her fairness, her roots, and her vision, with quotes from staff calling her one of us. Social media exploded with hashtag Sophia Ramirez, clips of the dining room showdown going viral. Guests at the hotel started tipping better, asking for Sophia by name. Mike, the rival CEO, sent her a note. Well played. Let's talk business soon. Sophia tucked it away, her focus on her team. Harlon, meanwhile, was adjusting. He showed up to a board meeting in a smaller office, his suit less crisp, his voice quieter. When Sophia entered, he stood, almost reflexively. Miss Ramirez, he said, his tone clipped but civil. Harlon, she replied, nodding. Let's work together to make this company better. He hesitated, then nodded back, a flicker of humility in his eyes. It wasn't much, but it was a start. By the end of the week, the hotel was thriving. Bookings were up, staff morale was soaring, and Sophia was everywhere. Checking in with cooks, helping at the front desk, even pouring coffee for a guest when a server was swamped. One evening, as she walked through the lobby, Carlos stopped her. The staff got you something, he said, handing her a small plaque. It read, To Sophia Ramirez, our heart and our leader. Sophia's throat tightened. She thought of her father, recovering at home, and her mother, who'd called her that morning to say, You've made us proud." She looked at Carlos, Maria, and the others gathered around. "This is for all of us," she said, holding up the plaque. The hotel's success rippled outward. Industry blogs praised Sophia's model, treating staff like family, not tools. Other hotels started copying her programs, and Jack's follow-up article called her a game changer. Mike, now a cautious ally, met with her to discuss partnerships, his respect clear. Harlon, still adjusting, began mentoring younger staff, his arrogance softening as he saw the company thrive under Sophia's lead. Sophia stood in the dining room one evening, the same room where Harlon had mocked her. It was packed now, the staff moving with confidence, guests smiling. She caught her reflection in a window, still the same Sophia, but stronger, surer. The staff's gratitude, her family's pride, and the industry's shift were proof of her impact. She wasn't just a waitress or an owner's daughter. She was a leader who'd turned a moment of cruelty into a movement for fairness. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who loves a good twist, and subscribe for more cinematic tales that hit you right in the heart. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from.